Good evening, curious people of the internet. Welcome to another episode of the Entrepreneur's Kitchen. I'm really happy to welcome you all back tonight. And at the other end of the line, it's Nicole Büttner, the CEO and co-founder of Merantix Labs. Hey, Nicole.
Hi, Seda. Thanks so much for the invite.
Thank you so much. Well, Nicole, you're so inspiring and interesting as a technology leader. You are one of the World Economic Forum technology pioneers also just since recently. So how's life going for a technology entrepreneur right now in Germany?
Oh, mixed feelings, I would say. So I would say it's going pretty mixed, right? Also with the current situation, I would say there are very mixed signals in there from our partners we're working with. Some of them are really stepping on the gas and really taking this as an opportunity, and others are shell-shocked, I guess, even more so with the digital stuff. So it's a little bit mixed. But we definitely see, I think all of us see that technology solutions are part of the solution also to these challenges. So that's very encouraging. And it's great to see people come together in hackathons and really also see the tech community come together and try to help and contribute. So.
Yeah, does a technology entrepreneur nowadays have time to cook at all?
Well, you will see. To cook, yes, but not to shop.
Well, I'm assuming you outsourced that part already.
The delivery windows are so rare. So like I should have done like a cocktail hour, but we're missing some lemons and stuff. So
no worries. I know that you've been in calls the entire day. The whole economy is burning and people are after people like yourself, entrepreneurs like yourself, who can provide the solutions, who can help them finally update into the digital world. So what does Merantix Labs do?
So we really focus on machine learning. So the whole Mirantix brand is all about machine learning and is building sort of machine learning companies and solutions, and really getting companies from this exploration part, which is fun, into the exploitation part, where you can really sort of make top line grow, bottom line impact, to also reap the benefits at some point. So that's what we do, and we're sort of applying all sorts of deep learning technologies, have cool engineers, and enable our partners with that.
And what does it take to be able to converse with those cool engineers, aka nerds?
Yeah, the other day my husband was like, I was laughing about this joke and I showed it to him and he's like, that's not funny. I'm like, yeah, you're just lacking context. And he's like, oh my God. I think, honestly, we have this joke in the office. They have like this book, Machine Learning for Dummies. So they always say, yeah, we're dumbing down our conversation for you guys, because I'm not an engineer, right? I'm an economist. So I'm one of those, social skills people. I say like almost special needs people, I feel like, in our company. But no, I think we found a good way to converse with each other. But I think, yeah, it definitely helps try understanding the technology a little bit and trying to trying to translate it right into in and output of systems and sort of architecture constraints and this kind of lingo.
Yeah, well, when Google started first, it was a bunch of engineers coming together, trying to figure out some sort of a structure to be able to actually go from A to B. And in your case, when you're actually managing so many engineers, so many people who are really technical in terms of background, is it really manageable? I mean, they don't come to offices, they don't really, or so. Because what you're doing right now, I'm really interested in that. I have a particular personal interest because it's with the home office and everything, people finally in the managing, company world understand how important it is and how actually possible it is to be at home or someplace else and still be able to work.
Yeah, so I think, as a digital first company, I think the whole home office thing was not such a bad thing for us. we were more limited sometimes by our partners' infrastructure. So if like you have a client and you're trying to deploy software and their VPN client is just not made for you to like download huge amounts of data or upload, that's more of a limiting factor. But I would say our engineers are much more productive actually when they're not in the office, right? So when nobody's disturbing them, like me coming in saying hi, But I think on the other side, we've seen we're like coming back slowly to the office. So reduced seats, rotating schemes, and also engineers are coming back to the office. So they also, I think, seem to like something about us, the managers and the other colleagues and so on.
Yeah, so it's really important that people actually do come back. And I totally understand that they want to come back to an office that's managed and organized and structured by some person like yourself. But not only in the entrepreneurial realm, but also in the political realm, you wanted to organize and structure and give a vision. Let's talk about that. You are you're a free Democrat. How do you call it actually? You're a liberal or libertarian.
Liberal Democrat, not libertarian. Exactly. Oh, that's important. No. Yeah.
Exactly. So and you were even a candidate for the European Parliament. What is on your agenda? What do we need right now?
We need, everything that we need now, right? Like we need more digital, we need more entrepreneurs, we need more digital and state. So I think really getting Europe competitive, because I think, we were really like, how to say, there are a lot of great things about European society that are really facilitate innovation, right? Strong liberal societies, democracy, strong education system, and so on. And we see that we get a lot of great scientists out of this and a lot of great trained professionals that leave universities. But when we look at entrepreneurship, we just see we're kind of not there compared to other geographies. So that's something I feel very passionate about. And I would love to see more digital and state, and a lot of the stuff I'm doing, I would love to do online. So those are my passions.
Well, that's a mindset change problem. By the way, I'm hearing also from my engineer, we're almost 7 minutes into the show and have not spoken about the food yet.
Okay.
It's important. Entrepreneurs do need to eat. And tonight I'm doing a Blitz brownie with only 2 ingredients. Can you believe this? It's Nutella. Not allowed to.
It.
Yeah, not allowed to say the brand names though. And eggs. So I will be doing some mixing if I go on mute. And if it works, it's perfect. If it doesn't work, it's not my fault.
I love this. Okay, I'm going to be very curious about this. I like it.
Well, the good thing about Entrepreneur's Kitchen is you actually get to eat your own food. So nobody's poisoned. Yeah,
that's true. And on that note, my husband has obviously left to eat out, right? He's like, you're cooking.
So he's having Indian, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. Well, and also let me mention that we have the Slido. So if people want to go ahead and ask questions for tonight's event, it's 47235 on slide.do. You can ask all sorts of questions to Nicole and to me. So I'm just, oh wow, this was fast. In your surroundings, will there be winners or losers of Corona? If yes, why? So they're asking about your friends or companies, especially, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of, I think overall, I find it hard to call like anybody really a winner of Corona, to be quite honest. I think we're seeing a lot of companies that are struggling because they don't have enough funding, right? If you're hitting sort of a funding round right now and you don't have enough runway, the VC market is a little bit dried up. So if you're lucky, you can sort of get some bridge financing, right, or some follow-on financing from your existing investors. I think that's a pretty rough patch. Then you have, I think, also the structurally, right, if you're in an industry that's very exposed, you in the travel industry, so that can be like a really rough patch. But I think structurally, right, I think in a crisis, there are two things that you need. You need agility and you need cash. So on one of those fronts, startups have an advantage, probably agility. But on the cash front, it really depends where you are in this funding cycle. So, yeah.
I actually want to dig a little bit deeper on this question, because one of the things that really strikes me, I mean, you are a liberal politician, so you are a person who speaks probably the language of, free market economy, the market regulating itself. Isn't this situation, even if it's a hardcore crisis situation, also one of those situations where you could say, so let the market regulate itself?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like a huge difference. That's why I'm like trying to correct, like I'm not a libertarian. I do believe there's
liberal.
value in state.
I said liberal.
Yeah. No. But I'm like, I'm just thinking like often it's also confused that like if you're a liberal, you don't really want the state, right? I'm an economist by training, and there are many externalities the market does not properly regulate, right? So you need a regulator stepping in and overseeing a market when it comes to competition, when it comes to, for example, we see this also in the environment, setting rules, because there are many sort of negative externalities, we call this in economics, where, right, you don't kind of have to pay for the negative effects that you're causing to the wider economy. And I very much believe in we should have rules for that. And there is then a range of how to deal with that. Like, does a state set a price? I'm all of us, we can ask ourselves, are we super experts in all fields? And then we can ask, are politicians super expert in all fields? So often I think the market mechanism is good within constraints to find the best solution and to be the most effective with capital. So for example, if we have CO2 emissions and we want to reduce them, like set strict targets, I'm totally on top of that. But then let entrepreneurs and people do with limited capital what's most efficient to achieve this. And I think in the health sector, right, we also see that pure market economy doesn't work.
Yeah, I think we've been doing that actually in a different realm, in the arts. Cut all the funding, don't give anyone any money, and see how creative they can be, and look where we are. So it does work.
They're still alive.
Right? Well, you survive. So and I mean, also when I go back and think right now about some of the decisions politicians are making right now about rescuing companies that have apparently been building their economic systems, their culture on all wrong and faulty assumptions and on exploitation culture. So and now going back, like in 2008, right? Going back and rescuing those wrong systems with tax money seems like an issue to me. So I'm someone who says, if liberal, then it should apply to everyone. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think in 2008 that was that's a huge problem, that people were not socializing benefits and profits, but were then socializing losses. And I think that's structurally completely wrong. And you need to have also responsibility, then obviously on the downside, as you hit the downside. That being said, right, and I mean, I thought it was quite cool. I went to my hairdresser, of course, with all the necessary precautions, but it was a great evening. And it was really moving because it really saved her business, right? So I think it was important to give aids and hand out aids, because for her, that was the difference between having to close down because she had basically 2 months cash reserves and staying open and now trying to rebuild her business. So I think for small and medium-sized businesses, that's really super crucial. Yeah, I mean, now we can, when you're a startup, you see, okay, how many billions is a lot of state-owned companies getting for the amount of employees they have, and then you look at the overall startup economy, and you see the aid package, and you're like, huh? Wait a second.
Yeah,
a lot of considerations, but Yeah.
So what would you do about that, Nicole?
So I think, I honestly think that it's good to, I think honestly for the economy as a whole, it's cheaper, right, to keep businesses alive and keep people productive in their, and be able to return to jobs than trying to imagine the 10 million people in Germany, it's 10 million in Germany right now that are on Kurzarbeit, so that's reduced working hours. If all of those people were laid off, that would be such a big shock. How would we start dealing with this, even just on an administration level, without being digital? Side remark, but it would be huge. So I think I think it does make sense to do this, but we also have to think about, okay, how are we adjusting this from one company to the next, and are we now giving aids to companies or that are structurally maybe anyway loss making, and as you said, not really our picture perfect corporate citizens. And I think it's legitimate to ask those questions, but I think it's still important, honestly, to help the companies, even though I'm liberal. I think it's still the right thing to do.
Yeah, and when we think about the companies you're involved with, it looks like this type of crisis does not really arrive in the realm of artificial intelligence. So tell me a couple of things that you think are going to be crucial and very important for small and medium-sized businesses in the future, and if they want to go into data and artificial intelligence realm.
Yeah, structurally, as you're saying, right, artificial intelligence is based on large amounts of data and on good quality data. And so structurally, it's favoring larger producers of data. So that often goes with the size of a company. I think what's important and we're trying also to enable SMEs, right? More traditional economy in Germany, which is our backbone. And I think it's also something I really like about the German economy, that it's quite distributed, if you will, in that sense, not so centralized. So to think about, right, everybody's telling you, oh, your data is your gold and your new oil. So everybody's building fences around it and trying to protect it because it's super precious. But also try to be a little bit realistic. And is your little data pot really by itself that precious? Or maybe it becomes much more powerful if you start thinking in an ecosystem and start thinking, hey, how can I work together with my supplier and my client, and then actually gain really cool insights about maybe the provenance of my pre-products, of my natural materials, and the quality of the end product, and so on. And I think that's going to be much more powerful to unleash really the value of artificial intelligence, for example, in the producing and manufacturing sector in Germany, right? That's still very strong.
Don't forget to unmute. Yeah, it's kind of loud when I'm mixing. And when you think about, for instance, one common friend, Hans Christian Bose, he is always favoring a certain, a data pool where a lot of companies could just share, and that we should have something like a European answer to that data struggle. Do you think that it's feasible?
So I agree that we need to grow bigger data sets. For example, my peers from the healthcare company Vara, right? For them, for startups trying to do something, for example, on medical data or on any other type of data, you need actually good data pools to start building your product on, and also the regulator needs a data set to start to test it on, right? So even on the other perspective, we're building software that can automate, for example, breast cancer diagnostics. But also the regulator needs data to actually validate this on, right, and test if it's actually working. So yes, I agree. We should start sharing data. I think there's a lot of mistrust because companies have heard this story, and then the only one benefiting from that shared data was Facebook and Amazon. So I think we need to do this in a trusted environment, right? To also make sure that the people contributing the data are also can
which
create
is
some
the
value on it.
Which is the Oktoberfest if you're in Germany, the trusted environment.
Let's call it the Oktoberfest.
Exactly, the Oktoberfest of data sharing, probably not happening in 2020 though. Well, there are other questions coming in, but before I go to some of these questions, I have one last question on my part. The whole change process we're talking about is actually less of a technological process. Do I understand it right? What is this about then?
It's totally about humans. I mean, you're right. It's I almost have the feeling the more techie I get, the more touchy-feely I get, right? If you like go, yeah, it's like, yeah, because in the end, we're making these products, we're trying to understand a real person's needs and problems and challenges to design a product for them. Right? Even when you're making a diagnostic system, you want it to work for you want a medical professional to be able to work with it. If they don't like working with it, they're not going to use it. And the same, and I think the same goes with, the developers. We're seeing very much that we need to take good care of how are we composing developer teams? How do we ensure that we don't embed bias in any of those systems? So it's crucial to get that right, for example. And that's also a people topic because we all have inherent biases. Nobody's free from that. And we have to acknowledge that and design to take that into account because, nobody's perfect. So, and I think it's the same thing when you're thinking about even implementing in any type of company, everybody has their fears and barriers, and that's very human, and we have to deal with that.
So the technological change is actually a process of human change. I like that. I really like that because I think it's really the real barrier is not the technology and the this notion around as if we have to be competing with technology, as if we are the ones who is in the service of technology, and as if technology is the self-purposed whatever. That's kind of interesting and weird at the same time. So there is a question here for you. Is the European tech scene hindered by the regulations around data protection, in your opinion?
So I would say yes, partly yes. So yeah, so let me get this right. I think it's great that we are looking out for data protection. I think that's actually one of the things that will set us apart and can be a competitive advantage actually compared to other geographies, especially when we think of medicine, think of synthetic biology, think of all these kind of genetics and machine learning. I think those are all areas where, me included, we will want to be able to trust that our privacy is protected while, this might be creating beneficial pharmaceuticals, medicines, treatments, and so on, right? And I think that's where Europe can really make it an advantage. I think, unfortunately, the data protection has led to the wrong people being afraid of using data. So I think the big tech behemoths that we wanted to regulate, like Facebook, Amazon, Google, the GAFAs, the big nines, whatever you want to call them, the bats in China, they can take the fines as just normal cost of business because they have real tangible revenue streams that come from actually the data business. A traditional company, let's say in logistics, they're a thin margin business. So if you're fined on a percentage of your revenue, that can kill your margin, like bye-bye. So you're going to be much more careful and cautious about doing anything with that data, let alone do anything wrong, because it can basically cost you your year. Yeah. And so I think it's great that we're very aware of this, but we also need to make sure that we don't frighten the wrong people, because we actually want those companies to think more about what they can do with data and probably, hinder actually, or make life a little bit harder for the really big data companies that are maybe not doing with our data exactly what we want them to be doing with it.
Yeah, what would be one plausible executive decision in your opinion?
You mean from a regulator?
Yeah.
I think from a regulator, I think you should I think you should sort of take into account a little bit also what is the revenue that you're generating from this. I think that could make sense for some of these smaller companies, right? That are actually de facto not really generating revenue yet with data. I think that would make a lot of sense.
I'm sorry, I have Nutella all over.
I love it. I'm envious. I have no Nutella here. I just have wine, darling.
Yeah. Well, sweetheart, I just put it into the oven because it looked too kind of gluey. I had a feeling that I should be putting some flour in it, so I added some flour. I'm looking forward to the turnout of this experiment. But you know, I never excuse myself for my cooking art. And there is one last question before we go to all the fluffy, jokey stuff. Do you think this current Kurzarbeit, how do you say it in English? I don't know. Kurzarbeit phase and mass unemployment in the US is a good test of how the future of work will look. Automation and do only jobs you like.
I think it would be a chance for it, right? So I think we have to like differentiate a little bit between the US and here, because my understanding is that in the US, I mean, here you get basically, you get a percentage of your salary paid out, so you are less likely to have existential fears, right? I think in the US, a lot of people are in the situation, if they're out of their job, they lose their healthcare, they can potentially lose their whole life. So I think to see if we can sort of, you know, if we can be more creative and actually focus on the stuff that really matters to us, we need to be free of these fears. That's my intuition on this. So I think, but yes, on the bright side, sure. I mean, it can be quite freeing to see, hey, what actually happens to my day when I don't have to go to the office every day. So I think that would be quite interesting to see that. And also, but you know, I think it's not like the environment is not really like the completely normal, because you're not interacting. I mean, for me personally, it would be like, I would need the energy also a little bit of other people to bounce off and to maybe develop ideas. So I think that can just be an extra challenge, right? It's not like completely free floating, but yeah.
Yeah, and one last question. So when you go back and think about your companies, what are the big breakthroughs in machine learning?
Ooh, that's a big question. Oh, wow.
Ooh, so, then let's ignore that.
What are the big breakthroughs in machine learning? So language is a big one. In the last 2 years, natural language processing is a biggie, because a lot of the most data that we have is in text probably. And being able to understand those better, I think, is like huge breakthrough. Medical texts, literature, any weird form you have to fill out.
Irony and fun. Computers cannot tell it kind of does. Actually, Alexa tells really good Chuck Norris jokes. One of them was, Chuck Norris can hear sign language. How awesome is that?
Okay, that's pretty good, actually. I'm not even sure I could make that such good jokes, right? It's like,
yeah, well, now it's
humbling.
your turn. Now it's your turn, Nicole. This is the time we start cracking jokes in this show.
Oh, no, I can't tell jokes for shit. That's horrible.
Everybody says that. Now it's your turn.
Oh no, I don't know any jokes, actually. I should tell this joke, the nerd joke, but I can't even remember it. Like, this is a bad sign. I'm focusing on cooking, Seda. Okay.
Yeah, well, you're not advancing really fast there either. So.
Can I please tell you 2 ingredients and who's done?
Hey!
Scrambled eggs and tomatoes. Et voila.
Well done. I just put mine into the oven, and it's going to take another half hour. And so, as I said, I'm just going to take a picture afterwards and post it online, so people do believe that I did actually try this. Well, it's called Blitz brownie, but it's not so blitzy fast.
It's not so blitzy. Don't be really in a rush, no?
Yeah, so Blitz brownie on Chef Koch does not work.
Oh man, oh man, oh man. So Seda, like, how do we, like, I mean, what kind of Corona superpower have you sort of unleashed, except for like pulling off a new TV show and everything, right? Like, just, I just pull that out of my, I thought, let me do that, you know.
Well, I think one thing that's really, really important is the power of connection. It has never been this relevant as before. Also to me, and I love hanging out with my friends at the Entrepreneur's Kitchen and just, you know, chatting with you guys. And we're about to finish tonight's episode. So let me tell my real joke, the one I prepared, because you're a nerdy kind of person. My joke is, what do you call a computer that sings? Adele.
Not bad. I think 1-0 for Seda versus Alexa. No.
Yeah, well, exactly. So when you go back to your job, to the office, you can tell this to your nerds. They'll love it, and they'll come and be all huggy and nice. Well, I want to thank you, Nicole, so much. This was really a delight. It was very interesting. I wish you know, we could go forever and ever. Actually, we are going to just stay in the line because we have an after show party with our guests. So while I'm saying goodbye to all the people, all the entrepreneurial and creative and you know, crazy people of the internet out there, thank you for tuning in tonight again. Tomorrow I have hypergenic. I have to ask him. Lynn Kaiser is going to be my guest. It's going to be very interesting. Whole different realm. We will be going all in crazy 3D printing stuff. And yeah, just join me tomorrow. I'll let you know about the brownie after tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.